Hey guys, welcome into the Eagles Report. Again, starting off this live Q&A video, we officially get going. A little bit of a pre-show there, but now we're officially into it. Seeing all the chats coming up here, so go ahead and start chatting with me, and I'll be answering questions as we go along. I want to get to some news first, but if you guys have questions in the chat, go ahead and drop those in there. I'll try and answer them as quickly as possible. First off, welcome in. First ever live Q&A here on the Eagles Report. We're going to start doing this a lot more often. That way you guys can join in and interact. That way I can go ahead and see how many questions you guys have. So right now, as we're doing this, the NFL Combine is taking place. We know that, but the wide receivers are running their 40 times as we speak. The only big name wide receiver to go so far is LSU's Justin Jefferson. He just ran a 4.44 40, his first unofficial time, which is crazy good, by the way. That's one of the Eagles' targets, which we're going to get into, but we want to see these guys have some speed, right? That's the big thing the Eagles need is speed, and so far so good in terms of Justin Jefferson and the 40 time. I want to start, though, talking about Combine meetings, because that's the big key here in the Combine this week is who are the Eagles meeting with. We have some reports on who they're potentially meeting with, who they have for sure meted with, and who they have not met with so far here at the NFL Combine. Here's what we're going to do. While I start talking about the Combine meetings, if you guys have questions regarding the Eagles, go into the comment section, use the hashtag Eagles. That way you guys get your questions up on the screen. I can find them a lot easier. So do something like this. Say hashtag Eagles. What will the Eagles do in the draft? Something like that, okay? That's what you guys need to do to get your questions on the show. So I'll pull questions. I'll answer them after we dive into who they have met with. So the official list of the Combine meetings, I have it over here on my other screen. A lot of wide receivers. Here are the guys we know for a fact the Eagles have gone ahead and met with. They met with Henry Ruggs. They met with Jalen Reagor out of TCU. They met with KJ, the Penn State wide receiver, just call him KJ. Justin Jefferson. They met with KJ Hill from Ohio State and Laviska Shenault as well. So they met with a lot of wide receivers up to this point, and the good news is they're trying to meet with as many as possible. That way we know they're going to go ahead and hopefully get a wide receiver in the first round. Now, unconfirmed if they've actually met with Jerry Jeudy yet, arguably the number 1 wide receiver, and CeeDee Lamb, the number 2 wide receiver in this draft, but those are the ones that we have reported for sure, confirmed, that have said they have met with the Philadelphia Eagles. Out of this list, we obviously love Henry Ruggs. We love Justin Jefferson, who just ran a 40, a 4.44, and we love Laviska Shenault, who many say is Julio Jones only bigger. I don't know how true that is, but he is a beast, 6'2", 225, and is expected to run a sub 4.4 whenever he runs his 40. But obviously, Ruggs and Jeudy are your top 2 guys that we all here in Philadelphia want to go ahead and get. The question is, will they fall to 25? The question is going to be really which one of these guys is going to be there, and then what kind of wide receiver do the Eagles want? Because the Penn State guy they met with, KJ, is 5'8", 178 pounds. He's not that big. He's like a slot wide receiver. And then you have guys like KJ Hill from Ohio State. He's their all-time leader in receptions, but he's also a slot guy. You kind of go, do you really want to get these smaller guys? Like Justin Jefferson has been compared to Keenan Allen. Laviska Shenault's been compared to Julio Jones. And then you have Ruggs being a speed guy like Deshaun Jackson, and Jalen Reagor being a speed guy as well, potentially a sub 4.3 with him. So I wonder what you guys think in terms of what the Eagles should do at number 25 in terms of getting a wide receiver, out the way up at 21 in terms of getting a wide receiver, because they need to go ahead and draft somebody to help out Carson Wentz. So go ahead and populate the chat. We'll get some questions here going. Use the hashtag Eagles. You can also super chat. If you guys use the super chat feature, those will get pushed to the very top, and I'll for sure see and answer the super chat questions. Someone said, do you think the Eagles will make a move up in the draft to take Henry Ruggs? I do think they're going to have to if they want to get Henry Ruggs. So, of course, we're sitting in the early 20 spot. Many people say, okay, at 21, Ruggs might be there. I don't know. Mel Kiper's most recent mock draft had Ruggs going, I think they had him going 22nd overall to the Buffalo Bills. Now, we took T. Higgins in that draft, but you got to remember, Oakland is sitting there at like 18. They also sit there, I believe, at 12, and then the Jets are there, and then you have the Broncos at 15. All 4 of those guys really want to go ahead and get wide receivers, and I think Henry Ruggs, whenever he runs his 40, if it's sub 4.4, if it's like a 4.3, he's going to skyrocket up those boards and probably be taken earlier than 21. So if you want Henry Ruggs, the speedster out of Alabama, you're probably going to have to trade up to go ahead and get him. The question is, what would it cost to do so? The Eagles are going to have 10-plus picks in the upcoming NFL draft, which means there's a lot of room to go ahead and move around and actually make some selections like that. But if they don't want to trade up, then they could sit tight and take the best wide receiver available, most likely a Jalen Reagor out of TCU, a T. Higgins out of Clemson, or a Justin Jefferson out of LSU. If I was going to put my money on it, I would bet that those were going to be the top wide receivers available at 21 overall for Philadelphia. Reagor out of TCU, Jefferson out of LSU, and then T. Higgins out of Clemson. And the question is going to be, do you go for a T. Higgins, who's basically an Alshon Jeffrey in terms of size and speed and catch radius? He's still a great player and might be, one of the best receivers in this draft, but if you want speed, the Judys, the Lambs, the Ruggs, I would bet are going to go ahead and be gone. Okay, let's see what else we have in terms of questions rolling in here. Use the hashtag Eagles. Get your questions in on the show. Who do you see the Eagles stealing in the draft? Stealing in the draft? I would be surprised, and don't quote me on this, but I would not be surprised if they went ahead and took a running back in the second round. Like, let's just say a Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU is available in the second round. The Eagles have 2 picks in the second round. They don't need a running back, but as we talked about in an earlier Eagles Report video with Melvin Gordon, would another running back to kind of, split some carries with Boston Scott and Miles Sanders be a bad thing? No. The Eagles have a plethora of picks. If they address cornerback and wide receiver in free agency and then wide receiver in the first round, you don't really necessarily have to get best player available. You go ahead and take a guy like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or a DeAndre Swift or something like that in the second round. So a steal could be a running back, even though we don't necessarily need one. Next question here. Eagles, they got to get Ruggs. I agree, Troy. They really do need to go ahead and get Ruggs. But again, as we just talked about, the odds are of him being there at 21, I think, are a little bit slim, just with Denver and Oakland, the Jets, all picking before us. Oakland's got multiple picks in the first round, so they can go ahead and take him. Hashtag Eagles, get your questions in the comment section. Las Anguilas asks, when does the salary cap reset? Like, when do they get the annual count of money they spend back? That'll be at the start of the new league year on March 18th, although if the new CBA gets officially confirmed before that, there's going to be more money to spend in free agency. So the new CBA is going to be pretty important in terms of more money for the Eagles. More questions here. If they don't move up for Shenault at 21 or cornerback, not really a question there, how would you address the linebacker situation? Okay, we did a linebacker video a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of people like the idea of getting a linebacker. The problem is that free agency doesn't have a lot of good ones. Like, you can go back and watch the video. There's just not a lot of great linebackers. Now, Blake Martinez from Green Bay would be good. He's 26 years old and a tackling machine, but the question is, do you want to give him the money that he's going to go ahead and demand? Now, if Isaiah Simmons, the number 1 linebacker in the draft, is there at number 21, I think the Eagles are going to take him. Like, if they get Robbie Anderson, let's say they get Robbie Anderson in free agency, and then they're sitting there at number 21, and Ruggs and Judy and Lamb are all gone, it's between T. Higgins and Isaiah Simmons, they will take Isaiah Simmons. The problem is, Simmons is probably a top 10, top 15 pick, so I don't think he would be there. But linebacker is a very unspoken, I should say, need for the Eagles. It's not the sexy pick that a lot of people are talking about with wide receiver and cornerback, but it is definitely a need for the Philadelphia Eagles because Nathan Gary is not exactly my favorite linebacker that the Eagles have ever had. Let's see what else we have. The Eagles are at the wide receiver in the first round. I think they will take a linebacker or cornerback in the second, asks Owen. Yeah, that would make sense. Again, the linebacker core in this draft is not that great. It's Isaiah Simmons. It's the guy from Oklahoma who I'm blanking on his name right now, but he was really, really good. He's just undersized. And then it's a bunch of guys who are projected to go between pick 75 and like 200. Like, there's not a lot in terms of depth of linebacker in this draft. Cornerback's kind of the same way. I really think they need to go ahead and get a corner in free agency because you could for sure know that Byron Jones is good. Chris Harris is battle-tested. You could trade for Darius Slay. Like, there are a lot of options in free agency that are surefire things, whereas in the draft, as we saw with a guy like Sidney Jones, you get him in the second round, and he doesn't turn out to be a top, true number 1 cornerback for Philadelphia. So, yeah, I think wide receiver is the pick at number 21, but in terms of the second round, they're probably going to take the best available, whether it's linebacker, D-line, maybe even an offensive line guy, and then cornerback as well. What other questions do we have here? Let's see. What about getting Jonathan Taylor, says Keith Moore. I would love Jonathan Taylor, the running back out of Wisconsin. Again, would not spend a first-round draft pick on him, but I would spend a second-round or a third-round draft pick. A little bit bigger, more physical of a running back as Miles Sanders, a little more, Shady McCoy-ish in terms of moving things around, in terms of shake and bake. So Taylor would be a great pick. I think the running back Swift out of Georgia would be a great pick as well. J.K. Dobbins is a good running back. It's a very deep running back class in this draft, which is why I say we don't need a running back. Like, Boston Scott was good, but are we sure Boston Scott's going to be really, really good for, years and years? Miles Sanders will be, but I think another elite young running back would be a good idea. Did you like that video? Thanks for watching, but why don't you click this video right here, because we did it just a couple of days ago, and guess what? It's about the Eagles too. Like that video? Why don't you subscribe right down here? That way you're notified whenever we release more videos here on the Eagles Report. It's the fastest growing Eagles channel here on YouTube. Video, subscribe, click them right now. Go ahead, click them.